Welcome, everybody. We're back with the Even Year Dynasty show. Dan and Ricky are joining us again. What's going on, guys?
What's up, boys? Merry Christmas / Happy Holidays / Happy Kwanzaa / Happy Hanukkah. See, you got a couple new Christmas gifts, Cody.
Yes, sir. Hopefully, we can upgrade the quality here a little bit for everybody. You guys will have to let me know if it sounds a little better on my end, but yeah, we reap the rewards of Christmas. That's for sure.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good to me.
Did you guys have a good holiday?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, as good as we could. It was definitely a good one, man. So I'm wearing the new little zip up.
Yeah, it looks nice, man.
It is the season, you know.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, I hope I see everyone's kind of jumping in here. I hope everyone had a great holiday. We're going to kind of do a couple things on this video. We're going to talk first, we're going to go a little bit into the news out there that Burnes or the Giants might be growing impatient with Burnes, possibly looking to pivot towards hitters. Obviously, one of those guys, Teoscar Hernandez, re-upped with LA, so he is no longer an option. They made me redo my thumbnail after I'd already got it set up this morning. We're also going to talk, and we're going to talk like if that's, if we think they're being serious here, if they maybe are just trying to leak stuff to get leverage. And also, if they do decide to go a different route than Corbin Burnes, how they might potentially be able to utilize the money that would have gone to him to still upgrade the roster. So we'll do that. And then I think we're all going to kind of come up with some New Year's resolutions for the Giants, since this is going to be more than likely the last live show of 2024, unless Corbin Burnes or someone else major decides to sign with the team, in which case we will probably pop in for an emergency live show. But, we're going to do New Year's resolutions today because we're not really anticipating that.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But no, I do think it's kind of interesting, some of the names that were dropped. I mean, you already mentioned one with Teoscar, but a couple of the others. One, Ricky's been high on him for months now with Santander, and then Profar is the other name that was kind of mentioned. So it's interesting to see the what's the best way I can put it? How Buster is not playing Boras's game, so to speak. So yeah, there's the post right there.
Yeah.
Where, that it seems like they're growing a little bit impatient. I mean, good on them. I mean, as far as all the rumors have said, there's been an offer on the table for weeks now. So good on them to finally just kind of be like, what, here's our deal. Take it or leave it. Otherwise, we're going to pivot. So I like that.
Yeah. So, as you guys can all see with the quote, it sounds like they're indicating the Giants are getting impatient, and they're going to look, possibly at adding another bat instead of upgrading, the starting pitching market, which, frankly, the starting pitching market is down to what? Burnes, Sasaki, Flaherty, and a bunch of super old future Hall of Famers from what I've seen. So with like Verlander and Scherzer. So there's not a ton of options, even by way of bats. It's starting to thin out quite a bit. Bregman is still out there, although he didn't get mentioned in this article. Alonso is out there, Santander, Profar, Hernandez re-up today with LA. So you only got about 3 different options on the free agent market or 4 different options that are probably, viewed as big upgrades for the offense. But they all kind of have their flaws. Like they're all, and I have big questions on the fit for all 4 of those guys with this team currently, and if it even makes sense to go that route. But we're going to kind of dive in on that. I'll get Ricky's thoughts too, because I haven't heard yet what he's thinking.
Yeah, regarding this little update we got today, I did think it was kind of interesting, the timing of the Teoscar deal to, for him going back to the Dodgers, especially because it was like right before that deal happened. These comments were kind of put out there that the Giants were kind of linked to him, which I think the 3 of us agreed that it was more smoke than anything. And then it seemed like within maybe an hour or so later, he was back with LA. So it seemed like it kind of put a little heat on the Dodgers more than anything. But I do feel like most of this is more out of just saying, hey, just because Burnes is the top guy on the market doesn't mean, um, we're going to be desperate for him and we won't go after a hitter instead and spend our money elsewhere. So I think it's good. You do have to set a deadline. I mean, we've seen the Giants in years past with big free agent classes get kind of played because they were kind of laser focused on one specific free agent. And then you let all the top guys go, and then you're left with nothing but scraps and 1 and 2 year deals left out there.
Yeah. Feels like even a lot of those guys have kind of fallen off the market.
Yeah.
Especially on the first base side of things. I mean, everybody pretty much got wiped clean other than pretty much Alonso.
Yeah, dude, that splurge of first baseman, there was what, a week and all of them were gone. It was like back to back to back to back. That was crazy. But yeah, I mean, like George is saying, Santander, dude, he's a guy that the three of us have been very vocal about for months. And not entirely sure, where the fit comes in. Obviously, Cody will touch in a little bit on that. But I mean, just from the pure perspective of him being a power hitting switch hitter who's only 30 years old, like you said, you can plug him in at the DH spot. You can throw him in the outfield. He's not the greatest defender, but I mean, the power is intriguing and the switch hitting capability is nice, especially since it's right now pretty much a right-hand dominant lineup. So the fact that you can have that left-handed versatility would be good, but it'd be interesting to see how things play out. I don't really see them going after Alonso, personally speaking, especially with the report today that he wants like 175 to 200 mil and New York offered him 90. So I don't see that being a realistic option. And obviously Teoscar gone. So, I mean, a Santander would be kind of intriguing.
Yeah. I mean, so I like going through this list of names, and I'll even throw Bregman in there. Like Bregman is honestly, from a bat standpoint, the one that I think would actually make the most sense, but positionally he doesn't, because you already have Chapman. You just signed Adames. I mean, obviously Bregman wouldn't have played short, but you just signed Adames, which basically limits guys like Schmidt and Fitzgerald to second base. So you're gonna block a young guy for it. Like, I just don't see the fit on that one. So because they're gonna want to see what they have out of Fitz, especially with the speed power combo. So I don't see him as a fit. Alonso probably makes the most sense. Well, I mean, actually, I would take that back. Santander probably makes the most sense, but Alonso, like, we all want a first baseman, but you're going to block Eldridge if you bring him up, or you're going to spend 7-8 years on a guy that's a full-time DH. That's not a Juan Soto or a Shohei Ohtani, who's like a high average unicorn player that's hits for average, hits for power, kind of actually is a centerpiece of your offense. Alonso's a masher, but he's also a guy that hits like between 220 and 240 half the time. So I'm not sure of his fit. He would crush the ball and I'd enjoy it, but I don't really see that as a fit. Profar, I'm not huge on guys that like suddenly have career years at age 31. Is he going to back up what he did last season next season? You're playing a really risky game with that one. And I think he's probably looking at, I mean, what would you guys think? Like probably a 3-year deal is what Profar is going to likely get.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. I don't
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I could see like a 3-year, $50 million deal. And, it's tough. I mean, he's had a very interesting career coming up as a really high-end prospect at short. Then he kind of bounced around the infield, I think, once he went to Oakland, and never really found like a stable home. And then when he went to San Diego, he was pretty solid. Spent a year in Colorado, was okay, but numbers get a little inflated there. Goes back to San Diego, and then out of nowhere, he blows up and does more of what you kind of expected when he, first came into the league. And yet he's far older now, so it's like 3-year deal. It's not the riskiest thing in the world. I don't know. I don't think the Giants are really in a position to, spend that kind of money on a guy of his quality. I think they could really spend that money elsewhere, honestly.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And then the last guy on that list, the one guy that I think makes sense of this list is Santander. And Rob says, not to be grumpy, but I fear Santander is Soler 2.0. I understand the sentiment just from a fact that he's probably going to be kind of limited to the DH spot. And he kind of has a reputation as a, extra base hit or nothing kind of hitter. But also on the flip side, if you kind of look at what he's done historically, like he's not a big strikeout guy. Soler strikes out a ton. And Soler has been incredibly up and down in his career. Not a ton of consistency there. Santander for 3 straight seasons it's not really been up and down. Like he had very high level production 2022 and 2023. And then in 2024, obviously he explodes for 44 home runs. But even just looking at 22 and 23, if you pull up, let me see if I can share this. Even if you just look at those 2 years, sorry, it takes a second to, So even if we just look at those 2 years, he's, this is a guy that hit 33. He averaged 30 home runs in each of those years, hit 240, hit 257 in 2023. The OPS is just a little under 800 those years because, the reality is he's not a big on base guy. His walk rate is respectable. It's kind of in the, it was above average last year. It's like in the 8% range. He doesn't hit for a huge average, but he does hit a ton of extra base hits. And I think he averaged like over 30 doubles and over 30 homers in those 2 seasons. So even if he doesn't give you 2024 production, if he's closer to those 2 years, I think every single person here would be thrilled with that offensive production. And that would be like double what you got out of Soler. So, and Baltimore's not the most, it's more hitter friendly than Oracle, especially for lefties. He does switch hit. And I think I would say Oracle or Camden Yards right now is actually less hitter friendly for righties than Oracle is because they did that weirdness with the outfield fence where they like moved it back a whole ton. Granted, now they're moving it back in a little bit. I think they're like splitting the difference a little bit, but Santander does give you the kind of the switch hitter with power that doesn't like have no power from one side. He actually has legit power from both sides. So from an offensive standpoint, if you're trying to upgrade your offense, like Santander actually makes a ton of sense. But defensively, he leaves you with like little versatility because you could probably tolerate him in left field. Ricky has made this point with us several times where he's mentioned, like, we've watched Jock Peterson in left. We've watched Pat Burrell in left. We've watched Aubrey Huff and Brandon Belton left. Michael Morse. Like, we've watched a lot of really crappy defensive left fielders, and it was fine as long as we were getting production. So we could probably deal with it, but, realistically in an ideal world, he'd end up as your DH. So that's where the fit for me becomes questionable because I don't think that's what Posey wants.
Yeah, I only see Santander being a realistic option if it's not smoke and mirrors and they actually do pivot from Corbin Burnes to going to offense. Plus, at that point, you'd go for like a lower end free agent pitcher that's available just to get like a, at least a number 3 arm in the rotation. Obviously, they're not going to get both Burnes and Santander, so it's just a matter of wait and see at this point, but I like the idea of it if the Burnes deal falls through.
Yeah. If Boras doesn't want to play ball, and this is my biggest thing, is like when the reports come out there that Burnes and Boras are looking for the Strasburg deal, like I saw a lot of people that were like, just give him 8 for 240 and it's done, or 245, whatever the number was. They're like, just give him 8 for 245 and get it done. And it's like, well, but the Strasburg deal is 7 for 245. That's a huge difference in AAV. That's like $4 million in AAV difference. And if I don't know what the Giants offer is, obviously I'm not there in the room negotiating. So I don't know what the Giants are offering, but if there's like a difference of 5-6 million and Boras is unwilling to make any kind of concessions here, like you can't negotiate with someone that's just saying, nope, that's our number. Especially when the market has dictated that number is asinine. Like, yeah, sure, Blake Snell got 36 million, but it also was like huge amount was deferred. Like what Max Fried got, that dictates the market way more than like the Snell deal. And it's like he wants the Snell AAV with the Fried years, and that's just not how it works. So I'm totally fine if the Giants are like, you know what, fine. If this is the way you want to play this, we're going to start pivoting. And hopefully they can kind of strike some fear in them that like this offer could get pulled at any moment. And if it does, enjoy Canada, bro. Like, sorry.
I just think regarding Santander as a a pivot move, I think people are severely underrating this guy's pretty steady production over the last few years. I think people look at his name and they're like, "Oh, that's not Pete Alonso," that's not Bregman, and it's like, guys, like this guy's a pretty steady, reliable hitter. This is not a Teoscar Hernandez who is going to strike out a ton and give you more of that Soler type, hit or miss type production year to year, where he may hit 40 bombs for you one year, and then the next year he might give you 15, strike out a ton, and hit for a low average. Like Santander is not that kind of guy. I think people see his averages and severely overrate that, and then think he's this huge strikeout guy that can't hit for contact because of his power numbers mixed with that low average. So I think people would really appreciate him if he came here, and he is not a Soler by any means. But to answer George's question, as far as what kind of contract you'd be looking at for Santander, you're looking probably like a 4-year, 80 mil, 5-year, 100 mil type deal, depending on, what's out there. I don't know what kind of offers he already has, obviously, but you're looking at a 20 mil AAV probably for Santander versus Burnes, who's wanting, or at least his agent is currently wanting 35 AAV. So pretty significant difference there. But regarding Burnes, I mean, if I were them, I would honestly probably be willing to split the difference and say, hey, we'll give you 7 years, 215 mil, and give you like say a 31 AAV rather than a 35, and say here it is. See if Toronto wants to top that, and if your guy actually wants to go there, and allow yourself to get into a little bit of a standoff. Because I mean, I've mentioned it to you guys the last couple of days. I really think we're at the point where if Burnes wanted to go there, he would have already gone there. And I mean, of course, we don't know what kind of offers are on the table from Toronto, but I mean, we haven't heard the same things we've heard from the Giants end of things, where, they're unwilling to go that route. So I would say up your offer a little bit, but don't bend, and say, hey, you have until say January 5th or January 10th, because Sasaki's around the corner as well. And if you guys don't want to take, 31 AAV, kick rocks, and we'll go get us a big hitter.
Yeah. Here's the thing with me. This is just pure speculation for where I view things. It seems to me like you touched on, I think Toronto has the biggest offer out there for him. I don't think that's a mystery. Toronto's been wanting to spend money. They've been wanting to spend big. I think they have the largest offer on the table for him. I don't think he wants to go to Canada. I think San Francisco has an offer on the table. It's just not quite to the number that they want to be at. And we obviously know this game that Boras is playing. Boras wants this to drag on a little bit longer and hopes that another team or a couple teams that are out there is going to pivot their focus to the starting pitching market and then start up a bidding war and have his price go even higher. That's the way that Scott Boras operates. We all know that's probably what his mindset is right now. So like you said, Ricky, you got to kind of stick to your guns at this point. Take it or leave it. This is our deal. This is when you have to accept it. Otherwise, we're going to pivot and focus elsewhere. So I like how they're putting the pressure on Boras now, rather than, just, healing to him like someone we know did over the last few years. So it's that's just the way that I kind of view how the situation's been playing out. And I just want it to come to an end, man.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like, so do you guys think that how much legitimacy do you think there is to the Giants actually chasing bats right now? Do you think it's just kind of, hey, we're going to leak this out and that to try and get them worried that the offer could get pulled? Or do you think they're actually chasing any of these guys?
I'll let you go first, Rick.
I don't think they're super deep into conversations with any of these guys right now. I really don't. I think they may have been having some preliminary talks. I think Santander is the only one really that they'd be having any serious kind of talks with right now. But yeah, I mean, for me, that's the only thing I could really see, and even then, I highly doubt that's gone too far because I'm sure those talks have started out much higher than a 20 AAV, considering Christian Walker just got 20 AAV on his 3-year deal, but he's also 2-3 years older than Santander. So no, I honestly I do think the Giants would be willing to pivot because if you don't land Burnes, you do have a good chunk of change that you can go and spend on free agents before you wrap up the offseason. If you don't land Burnes and then you're still not, getting yourself over the tax. But I think right now they're solely focused on Burnes and just trying to wait and call Boras's bluff because I just don't see this playing out too much further, especially with that January 15th date with Sasaki.
I agree to an extent. I think they've at least checked in on some of these guys. I don't think they're deep into negotiations with any of them, but I do think that they have at least touched base with the Alonsos, the Teoscars before he signed, Santander. Like I think the Giants have at least checked in with them. Like Ricky said, and had some sort of preliminary discussions. I do think their focus is solely on pitching, but I do think there is a chance that they can pivot. It's just, I kind of agree with Ricky. I don't think they're deep into negotiations with any of these guys, but I do believe that they have been in contact and they're not afraid to, pursue one should things go south.
Yeah. I do kind of wonder if Santander is going to end it, like if it would take a bigger deal to get him to San Francisco. Like I feel like 4 for $80 is kind of market value, but given the Oracle tax, we'll call it, I kind of do wonder if you'd have to like bump that average up $3 or $4 million to actually get him to come, or tack on an extra year. I know you mentioned like 5 for 100. I could see like 5 for 110 or something like that, which I mean, that's where it starts getting a little dicey with a deal like that. But it's the Oracle tax with hitters. Like you're not going to get these guys without overpaying. Adames is like one of the few guys where really, if you look at his expected production and the market value, it was kind of like they didn't really overpay for him. They kind of paid market value, which is good. But typically you have to, especially with hitters. So they might have to pay a little more, but I'm very much I at least think initially this is more to try and speed the process up on Burnes. Like I don't think, like you guys said, I don't think they're super far along with these guys. I'm sure they've had some conversations. One thing I did just double check, I had to go look for it, was Santander is not a Boras client, for anybody wondering. So
thank God.
Yeah. So, Boras doesn't have the entire market cornered right now. So I could see that being a play for them. But I do think at least initially this is let's try and put some fear in Burnes. And then, I agree with you guys, like come in with try and split the difference. But if you're going to do that, make it the final offer. Like if you're going to try and split whatever your number is currently and what they're asking, whether that's adding another year onto the deal to try and, get away with the lower AAV, or if it's trying to just up your average and keep it to 7 years or whatever the current contract offer is, like up it up, bring it up a little bit, obviously try and, beat the free deal, at least in terms of dollars. I think that's going to matter to someone like Boras. So maybe you have to go up to like, what would that be? 7 for 220. Cause I think Fried got 8 for 218. Is that correct? Yeah. So maybe you have to go to like 7 for 220. So, it's like 31 and change a year, or whatever the number is, like go up a little bit. So you can at least, Boras can sit there and say, okay, we beat Fried both in dollars and, he had more years, whatever. But up the offer, but then just be like, this is the final offer. And if we sign someone else, like, it's getting pulled immediately. And follow through with that. Like, start negotiating with these other guys, because you can't sit there and risk losing everything on the market.
Yeah.
If you're actively wanting to be better, just sitting around and waiting on Boras, because you know what, like, Boras is going to go on his own timeline. And I am kind of getting closer to the point of, I almost hope Burnes gets stuck going to Toronto and they just suck and are a 5th place team for like the next 6 years, because it would just, like, it'll make more people sour on Boras when a guy gets stuck playing in a city he doesn't want to be, for a team he doesn't want to be or be on, and the team stinks. Like, I feel like it would turn more players away from Boras when back-to-back off seasons he kind of screws multiple of his free agents.
Yeah. I think you touched on it earlier, and the three of us have been very vocal about it. That's been one of the things that has plagued the Giants for years now in the offseason, where they get their hearts set on one guy, they pursue him heavily through end of December, they lose out and miss out on him, and then all the second tier or B tier free agents are gone, and you're left with what's left. And that's the reason why we've gotten stuck with the Striplings, Confortos, Hanagers, like those types of deals, is for that very reason. So I'm all for, applying some heat, applying some pressure to try to change that narrative and change that continuous trend year in and year out.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think the biggest thing that's really screwed Boras so far this offseason with Burnes is just, I don't think he expected both, free agency and the trade market for pitchers to take off quite like it has, to where there's literally like Burnes and Flaherty left, and those guys are in 2 different stratospheres. I mean, I don't think any of us really thought Crochet would get traded that quickly, or at least I didn't. I thought it was pretty likely that him and maybe even Luis Robert would get traded this offseason, but I didn't think it would happen like just in the heat of free agency like that. Like, I expected something like that to happen a little bit later on, maybe, if it were going to happen, or closer to the deadline. So I think that really changed things with him going to Boston, because I feel like with the amount of money they had available to spend, I felt like they were a bigger threat than anybody else to the Giants for getting Burnes. And then especially after they lost out on Soto. But with them getting Crochet and Sandoval and Bueller now, I mean, I don't see how they even have any more spots left for a guy like that. And the Red Sox are still in on Alonso and Bregman, and they could definitely be getting one of those big hitters that are out there still. So I think that really screwed him waiting it out, because now it's like, I think Posey's kind of in the same boat as us, where he's just calling the bluff, and I don't think he really thinks that Burnes wants to go there. And especially when you have Adames and some of these other guys that are in contact with Burnes, you kind of have a little bit of inside info, and it's like, Posey's probably like, this sucker really thinks that we believe he's going to go to Toronto. I have his homies over here telling me that he doesn't want to go there. So it's like,
yeah,
I don't know. We've seen Webb and Adames seem both, be pretty confident in being able to come here. So
yeah,
just a matter of time.
100%. So Nick says, how much of the stalling tactic is Boras, or is it Burnes being kind of greedy? The way I would put it is just my opinion. I think it's a Boras thing, but every player knows what they're doing when they hire Scott Boras. Like, you know what you're getting into. Like, you know that this is the way he does business, and you're hiring Scott Boras because you want him to get you the most money for wherever you want to play. And Boras is going to advise his players, like, this is the way to do it. Because, I mean, the reality is, as much as we all can't stand the guy, he's been doing this for decades, and he's been doing it successfully for decades for his players. So there's a reason he does it this way. So I think the answer is yes. Like, it's both of them, but the players, ultimately, at the end of the day, he does work for the players. So if Burnes does get kind of the fear of, oh God, I could end up in Canada for the next 7 or 8 years of my career, he might just force the issue. Because I mean, the other part of it is a lot of guys, like, there's a lot of talk that he wants to be able to have spring training in Arizona because that's where he lives in the off season. And I mean, a lot of people say like, oh, just move to Florida. He might not want to move to Florida. Like, he might just, that might be where he wants to be. So, and the other teams in the race right now are all teams that play their spring training in Florida. Like, there's a lot of like other factors here. I do think ultimately, if the Giants pulled their offer, I actually don't think he would go to Toronto. I think he would take a shorter term deal to play with like Baltimore or something. I think he would just stick around. Like, I just don't think there's any chance he goes to Toronto personally.
Yeah. I mean, here's the honest truth. San Francisco has all the leverage.
Yeah.
I mean, for reasons that you touched on, he lives near where Giants have spring training. He's from California. His wife's from California. Their families are from California. He's got the connection with the Bay Area. So it's like the Giants know they have all the leverage in the world. They know that Burnes wants to be there. So why would they buy into Boras's BS and, match Toronto's offer and, give in to some crazy 7-245 type deal? Like, why do you need to do that? You have the leverage. You don't need to play this guy's game. So I like this whole concept of, hey, here's our offer. It's a little less than what Toronto's offering you, but these are your two choices. Either the two teams that are in on you. These are the two teams that are making legitimate offers. Pick one. You want to wait this out? You want to go to Toronto without Vladdy? Do not bid against yourself. 100%. You want to go with and have, the risk of Bo and Vladdy leaving and then you're stuck in Toronto? Do you want to take a short year deal and then go through this again when you're 33, 34 years old? Like, this is your chance now. So, don't bid against yourself and don't buy into his BS.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, if this does happen, I hope there's just a max exodus from Boras Core. I really do, because I guarantee you right now that Burnes has a 7-year offer. Like, the thing was, Snell came out last season and said he never got that 5 for 150 or whatever that got reported the Yankees gave him. He's like, yeah, I never got that offer. That didn't happen. Now, is he lying? I don't know, but he claims that he never got that offer. So, if they're not giving him the long term and he ends up signing a deal like that, or like Chapman did, and then they go get that long term after, like, it makes sense. But it's pretty widely reported right now that Burnes has like multiple 7-year offers. If he goes and takes a 1-year deal, like, he is putting incredible pressure on himself and taking a huge risk. So it's like, you really going to do that?
I mean, one of the things he's known for is durability. What happens if something happens, he gets injured? Then he goes into next offseason and he just completely screwed himself. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to take these types of things into consideration.
Yeah. 100%.
And I do think, real quick, Aaron Loss' comment is super important too. Not a lot of people have given credit for the Jeff Berry hire, being Buster's agent during his playing career. Jeff Berry has had a lot of high-end clients like Buster. He just recently negotiated that Trey Turner deal with the Phillies just a few years ago. JT Realmuto. He's had a bunch of big name clients that he's repped, Josh Hader as well. So, I mean, he's super connected with all these teams and kind of gauging what teams are after, how teams negotiate. He was involved in all of that. So I definitely think that's an underrated thing that hasn't really been discussed a lot, that could definitely be helping Posey understand kind of the inner workings of the free agent market and, how some of these other agents, operate too, and what they're thinking.
Yeah, agreed. Covery says, thank you for the $5. He says, while our contract offer is collecting dust on the table, the Dodgers are collecting infinity stones. Can't afford to wait much longer. Love the show. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. Like, the Dodgers just keep adding. And I mean, they obviously added Snell. That's been the big ad for them this year. They're obviously, Teoscar, they're bringing back. They added Conforto, who is probably going to have a really good year in LA, if we're being honest. Hitting 7th for them or 8th, like, kind of insane that's what their 7 or 8 hitter is. Yeah, they're getting better. And if they get Sasaki, like, like I don't really know what you do with that at that point. I don't like saying, hey, you concede the next couple of years, but you might be looking at like, don't do anything jeopardizing your long term, because you're gonna have a really hard time competing in the short term. So, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I've been kind of the mindset, and I've told you guys this before. I'm kind of over worrying about what the Dodgers are doing because the
Yeah.
Giants are just not anywhere on that level. Maybe if the Giants were more like how the Padres have been and the Phillies have been as far as expectations and, the superstar type talent that's on those rosters, I would understand worrying about them a little bit more, but ultimately it's like the Giants are kind of at a spot where they need to worry about trying to get back to the playoffs first and foremost, and then kind of worry about, competing with the Dodgers. But you're just not going to match what they're doing. You're not going to get an Otani this offseason. You're not going to get a Mookie Betts or Freddie Freeman. Ultimately, it would really suck to see them get a 23-year-old stud pitcher because they'll have him under team control for quite a while. And that hurts. You'd like to see them kind of stay a little bit older. But I think the Giants are kind of need to just do your own thing and kind of worry about yourself and worry about competing with these other wild card teams.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, you want to build a team that can be, contend with them in the short series. Like, that's fair. But I think the people that are like, we got to catch them in the division, it's like, that's just not happening anytime soon. And if you become a 90+ win team and then you add Eldridge in, and Eldridge is everything you ever hope for, all right, we can start having this conversation. Like, now it's like you're closing that gap. If Eldridge becomes like a top 10 player in baseball or top 10 hitter, then yeah, maybe we can like start really having this conversation. But the disparity in talent between the two teams, it's absurd. It's just they're not closing that gap anytime in the very near future. So it's just, you got to keep making moves to make yourself better. You got to make moves to try and compete, like Ricky said, with the wild card teams. And if you can just build yourself a great bullpen and a really good rotation, that's where a guy like Burnes could be huge, or a Sasaki. Build yourself a really nice rotation, and then at least make it to where you have a puncher's chance in a short series.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do right now.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
The other thing I was just going to say real quick too is, as far as their contract offer collecting dust, I agree 100%. You got to find that balance between making something happen quick and, also not, waiting too long. But the thing is too with Burnes, it's like that's your number one guy you kind of want this offseason. So it's like it is fair to kind of wait a little bit on that and give a little bit of patience while there are still numerous other plan Bs out there. But I don't think, if that's the guy you ultimately want, you don't want to pivot too quick and lose out on the guy, and then he ends up signing for what you would have initially paid him, and then you lose out, and then you end up going and getting, say overpaying for a Bregman or Alonso or something like that, and that doesn't end up being, what you wanted to do to begin with and how you wanted to build out your off season. So, wait it out if that's the guy you truly covet, and then anything else beyond that, it's you kind of accomplished what you wanted. You get a front end starter and you get your shortstop.
Yeah. And not to mention, Burnes is the guy that gives you the best chance against the Dodgers in a short series. Like, to your point, like it does make sense to be patient there, but I totally get why they're like, okay, dude, like, crap or get off the pot. Like, we're not going to sit here holding this offer out there forever. Because as many people in the chat have pointed out, like, the starting pitching market's kind of dried up. The first base market's pretty non-existent at this point outside of Alonso. Or maybe Santander if you want to stick him at first, which I'm not sure how confident any of you guys would be there, but maybe he could do it. Two of the hugest, biggest needs on the team have kind of dried up outside of, guys like Burnes and Alonso. So it's tough to see. As some others have mentioned, they're probably going to have to look on the trade front. I think in a perfect world, the Giants would love to get Burnes and then look to trade for a bat. I've brought up Spencer Steer. There's some other guys, Yandy Diaz. There's, teams like St. Louis and Cincinnati do have a lot of those young, inexpensive players that are still pre-arbitration that maybe they'd part with to try and get some help for pitching on their end. Like they might try and do young pitching for young position players. There's kind of some different options there that they could go.
Spencer Steer.
Yeah. Y'all know how I feel about that one. So what do you guys think? Like, let's say Burnes, I know we said we were going to talk about this. Let's say Burnes does go to Baltimore or Toronto. Let's say Burnes goes elsewhere and the Giants have a $30 million hole burning in their pocket, which, I mean, I think there is the risk that the Johnsons just pocket that money, but what could you see the team doing with that money going forward? Do you think it's something that they avoid many, long-term commitments? Do you think they would hand out a big deal or two? How do you guys see them trying to improve the team if that happens?
You go first, Rick.
I think a best case scenario would be looking at Santander or Alonso and starting there. And then you could realistically still, depending on the deals, of course, and how things continue to play out, you could still go and try to get, a Tanner Scott or a Jeff Hoffman. Yeah. Hoffman is somebody that you might want to pivot to if you do get a big bat and you don't get Burnes, because he's going to be a little bit cheaper given his age. But this is a guy that would really help on the back end, especially if you say, want to roll out Ryan Walker in the closer role still, then you go Jeff Hoffman in the 7th or 8th inning, and you get a guy on like a 10 or 11 year or mil AAV for say 3-4 years. The guy's already, 33 years old, but he's put up 3 really solid seasons. 2 in Philly, and I believe the one prior to that was in Cincinnati. And he's turned into a really good, reliable late inning reliever, very good strikeout to walk ratio. So he's a guy that the Giants could go and covet, and there hasn't really been a ton of talks surrounding him yet. I think the Phillies would love to bring him back. I've heard the Cubs kind of in the mix because they really could use the bullpen help, especially. But he's a guy I could see them pivot to, and he would make both a Taylor Rogers trade very possible to save yourself some money. You could try to shed Taylor Rogers' contract, take on Hoffman's contract, and then you're not really looking at any net gain on your tax for this coming year. So you cut Rogers $12 million off, and then you take on Hoffman at 11 or 12 mil and get a way better pitcher that can actually pitch for you in high leverage innings. So I think those are 2 guys you could covet. Obviously Tanner Scott's out there. He's going to cost you a little bit more. He's a little bit younger, but you have him, and then you could still go and get, a big bat, but you'd be really pushing it if you got Scott and like a Santander. You'd be looking at possibly 35 to 38 AAV adding those 2 guys, and you'd probably be forced into trading a guy away if you want to stay under the tax.
Yeah,
but
you would be under the tax, but you'd have no wiggle room at the deadline, like to add if you have a good team
underneath it.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't think they want to be that close. Personally, I think it will pretty much guarantee that Yaz or Rogers, one of those 2 guys, is probably gone. Maybe even Wade as well. But I think that's what you'd be looking at. Obviously, now if you got Roki Sasaki, now that just completely changes everything, because you're looking at like more of a $7.5 million AAV because of his status coming over from Japan, being only 23 years old. You're looking at a real cheap deal for him, and then you have a ton of flexibility to get any one of Bregman, Alonso, Santander. So
he'd be pre-arb. He'd be making $800K as a rookie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have a signing
right.
bonus. He'd probably get the $5 million
you get a larger
or whatever.
Signing bonus, but
that guy, see that, like Sasaki is the kind of guy that, we've talked a lot of like the cost from like, you'd lose, you would likely lose Hoswar Gonzalez in that case. I mean, supposedly, I think the Mets are in line to sign a guy for like $5 million, and they said it didn't rule them out on Sasaki. So I don't know, maybe Sasaki is open to taking a smaller signing bonus, knowing damn well that he's going to get paid in endorsements. But I mean, that's a guy that if he's as good as you hope, like he could be a cash cow, similar to how Lee was for you last season, where they made a ton of money off of Lee. You could make a ton off Sasaki too if he does come, and he comes at just a tiny price tag. So yeah, he would change everything, honestly, if he comes. I'm not holding my breath, but it would.
No, I don't think any of us are holding our breath. I mean, there's just been no reason for us to assume he would choose to come to San Francisco. But yeah, he pretty much opens everything up. And, as far as Joshua Gonzalez goes, it's tough because this kid's, if you take out Roki, he's the top international prospect this year. And he's a 16-year-old shortstop. But I mean, I guess the thing is with Roki, you kind of just worry about that problem when the time comes, because you're looking at a 23-year-old starting pitcher who's ready to roll right now in the big leagues. And, Gonzalez, you're probably looking at 4, 5, 6 years before we see him potentially.
Yeah, Gonzalez only would hurt for me because if he did become a superstar, because it's like, God, we haven't had a guy like that in forever. Like if he doesn't, then but the odds are he's not going to be like that's the reality. Is like the odds are that he's not going to be that kind of player. It's just it would hurt my soul if he was.
Especially the positional value, assuming he's a guy that sticks at short. Obviously that didn't work out with Luciano, but you're like investing in stocks with these guys. You're hoping one of them just takes off and is, like Apple and ends up becoming the next big thing. And next thing you know, you have a superstar shortstop that you wouldn't normally be able to recruit to San Francisco with a ton of tools. So kind of just worry about that problem when the time comes. If Roki says, "Oh yeah, I'm coming," that could also lead to a lot of other things down the line with some of these other Japanese pitchers specifically that are going to be trying to come over in the next couple of years.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you look at what Roki's stuff, like a lot of people talked about Yamamoto having this great stuff. And I felt like Yamamoto is more just like plus stuff paired with plus command. Like Roki's command isn't necessarily viewed like in the same light as Yamamoto's, but then you look at, Roki's stuff and it's like he has like an 80 grade splitter and he throws 100, he's hit 102 with his fastball. Like that combination could be borderline unhittable at like I get why. And it's the same reason why I said, if he does decide to come, you just tear up your agreements. You worry about the ramifications later. You just tear them up and you go with it, because those guys don't grow on trees. Like that's such a rarity to have a guy with that kind of stuff out of a starting pitcher. I do have concerns on like, will that arm hold up long term? Throwing 98, 99, 100, and as a starter, we haven't seen a lot of those guys last, but it's still just dang.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know if there's anything behind it, but I did see his average fastball velo did drop like 2-3 miles an hour. Like he was more around 96, 97, which, totally fine there. But I did see that. So I don't know if he's trying to, have a little bit more command or if there is anything there at all. But I mean, that's a guy you can't not do your due diligence on. Without a doubt. And I mean, I don't know how much video you guys have seen on him, but with that splitter, like he makes Gosman's look mediocre. Like it's got an insane amount of run on it. It's nuts for a 23-year-old.
Yeah. It would be like a top 5 pitch in baseball the second he steps on a mound. It's so gross. Like when Posey's looking at that, he's just like, oh dear God, like I would never want to face this guy.
Yeah.
So, some other, like you guys said though, like kind of circling back, like I think Santander would definitely be the big focus. I don't know really what's out on the trade market for starters. I know I've seen Sonny Gray is a name that I could see, but he'd be a little pricier. The tax hit's only like 25 million though. Maybe you could get away with sending a minimal package to St. Louis because they'd probably be trying to dump the salary. I think so. I think he's an option you could look into. Outside of that, I mean, I've seen people bring up Gossman, who's got 2 years at like 22 AAV or 24 AAV, something like that, left on his deal. Maybe I would be more inclined to take Gray's money than Gossman's, if I'm being honest. Gossman's first half last year really concerned me as far as if he's just about to like fall off a cliff the next 2 years. But he is an option, but these are guys that are a bit expensive. A couple people are bringing up Pablo Lopez. I'd have to look at what his money looks like and his contract situation. I mean, there's not a ton out there for starters, but I think Santander is probably the guy they would focus on. But I really like what Aaron says here. He said, I've always thought of this as more of a 2-year plan. 2025 is just about getting relevant and competitive again. Yeah, I mean, I know I've mentioned it. You guys have kind of mentioned it in the past. This is a year that they very well could make some moves to just be a competitive team. They might not win much more than they have in the last few years, but play a better brand of baseball and be a competitive team built around young players.
Yeah.
Primarily. Obviously you have Chapman and Adames now, but be primarily built around young players to where you feel like the arrow is pointing up and you're going to figure out what you have before really going and attacking next offseason, trying to fill needs. Once you know what you have internally, and if a Matos and McRae don't take off, which I know somebody, Gran mentioned earlier, let those two duke it out at this point, save the money for Tucker. It's like, if you go that route, you can say, hey, we got a competitive team. We're going to let these guys play. And if we have something great out of these two or one of them, awesome. We don't have to worry about right field. We can allocate that money elsewhere. If they both stink and you go, we desperately need a right fielder, then yeah, you might just throw an enormous $400 million offer at Kyle Tucker next offseason. It gives you kind of options if you go that route. And if you do surprise maybe even your own expectations and you are competitive, like if you find yourself 10 games over 500 or something going into the deadline, then make a move. You'll have you'll have the space available to take on a contract. Make a move at that point.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few names that I had on my list as far as where to pivot to if you miss out on Burnes and you got that money burning a hole in your pocket. But it kind of ties into what you just said as far as a sense of direction, which is something that you guys know that I've been begging for years now, but especially the last few months. Just what direction are you going to go? Because to me personally, you can go at this a couple different ways. If you want to go and sign a free agent starting pitcher, the best one on the market once Burnes is gone is probably Jack Flaherty. That can be one that you could turn to. I don't really like the idea of it. Me personally, I agree with a lot of the comments. I would rather look at the trade market and pursue a Pablo Lopez. He's 21 million right there for 3 more years, and he's only 28 years old. So that's a guy you can lock in the middle of your rotation for, the next few years to come, especially if you're looking to contend in 2 seasons, not necessarily this upcoming season. The rest of the targets I would go after, I'm big on Tanner Scott. You guys know this. I would love to make a move for Tanner Scott and then flip Taylor Rogers. I feel like that's a win-win scenario right there. And then as far as bats are concerned, I mean, if you want to go and sign a guy which has a QO attached to him, but is going to get you some pop in the lineup, I'd go for a Santander. I mean, like we've been touching on, you can plug him in left field, right? And then put him at DH on days off. By doing something like that, though, you will be moving Yaz into either a 4th outfielder role, or you would just look to trade him, which you guys know me. I would love to do that. And then the other 2 bats, we've both kind of discussed it over the last few weeks and months, which would be more of like a first base addressing. I would go Steer or Diaz. I think those are 2 guys you can make a move for. I think Diaz might be a little bit more expensive than Steer. So I'd probably lean more towards the Steer route. But Diaz makes a lot of sense as well. But if you're going to be making these types of move that I'm suggesting, it's going to involve most likely trading Yaz. It's going to involve getting rid of Wade and Wilmer, and it's going to involve trading Taylor Rogers. But breaking down the financials for guys like that, with what you're getting in and what you're getting rid of, it does balance out pretty well, and you will still be well under that CBT. So I would like to do something like that, but it all comes down to, like you said, a sense of direction. Are you going to try to contend this year? And if so, then yes, you'd want to make a move for like a Santander. Or are you looking to, just get relevant and make this team enjoyable to watch for the first time in years and have a decent product on the field, and then hope to contend the following year and focus on, the long-term, contention with the team. So it really just depends on which direction you want to go. But those are some of the names that I would float out in this very moment if the Burnes deal falls apart and you have to pivot.
Yeah. Sweet.
Another guy too that I've mentioned a couple other times as well is, as far as missing out on Burnes goes, is Freddie Peralta. I know some people have felt that, he wouldn't be getting shipped out of Milwaukee, but when you really look at what Milwaukee's working with, they lost Burnes last offseason, and then this offseason they just traded out Devin Williams. They have a clear history of trading guys, not just guys that are going to be pending free agents, but guys that are getting close to having expiring deals and trying to get some kind of value out of them before, letting them just hit free agency, especially because they're in a smaller market. They're not going to spend that kind of money. And with Freddie Peralta, I don't see why it would be out of the realm of possibility, because, he's a guy, he's got a club option that they took on him for $8 million this year. And then they have another one for next year at $8 million again. So you're looking at 2 years left, and ultimately you see guys all the time at the deadline. They have a year and a half left of team control before hitting free agency. Those are guys that teams want all the time because they're not rentals, and you still get them for that extra year before you have to decide whether or not you want to give them a contract extension. And like Burnes, Freddie Peralta is a guy, when healthy, he's going to give you a lot of innings, or like a Robbie Ray. And he's going to have, a pretty solid ERA. He's pitching a hitter's park, so he can only get better pitching in San Francisco. He threw over 170 innings last year, and he's super affordable. So I don't see why a team like the Giants, that has a ton of young pitching that could be available in trade, couldn't go and trade, a Harrison or a Wisenhunt, and then pair him with another starter or possibly one of our young relievers that's kind of stuck down in Sacramento, and, pry him away from Milwaukee. I think it would make a ton of sense on a lot of levels for both teams.
Yeah. I like Freddie Peralta. I think that'd be a good trade. And, teams trading people with 2 years, it's like, it seems to be the new, like 2 years is the new one, what used to be expiring deals. Like now teams are realizing, like, everyone around the league has figured out, like, we're not going to give up significant assets for a rental. So now teams have kind of pivoted to figuring out that they need to start trading guys with 2 years left on their deals. And Freddie could be a good option. Walkoff says, what are your expectations from Robbie Ray? Could he be a trade piece or a keeper? I don't really think anybody's going to take the money for Robbie Ray coming off the Tommy John. So I think you're kind of stuck with him. But that said, I think I've been a little bit more bullish on Ray than most people have. I expect to get like 160 to 170 innings out of him, and he'll probably have a 3.7 to 3.8 ERA, somewhere in that range, or 3.6 to 3.8, somewhere in that. Like, I don't expect him to be a Cy Young winner again, but I think being another year removed from the Tommy John, and him not having to go through rehab all off season and relearn how to throw a baseball, which is what they basically have to do every time they have Tommy John. I expect him to have a better feel for his pitches and him to have a lot better control going into next season and be a just solid pitcher, at least.
I also I'll go ahead with Abel's comment.
Oh, he just said, "How about getting 2 hitters and go with our pitching?" Yeah, I mean they could do that. It's a risk.
I don't like
A lot
that.
of young pitching.
I don't like that.
I don't like just putting all your eggs in the basket of your young pitchers that haven't shown the ability to eat up innings, but I I'd be excited to see them get a chance, like that would be the one thing. Like I'd be excited to see guys like Wisenhunt get a chance. I'd be excited to see guys like even McDonald, who I'm not a huge believer as a starter. I really like him as a potential reliever. Guys like Landon Roop, who I am a huge believer in as a starter. Like if he was able to get it, in a run for most of the season, but a lot of these guys don't have the arms like built up to throw 140 plus innings. So that's where the big risk lies right now.
I don't like it just based off of like our current rotation as it's set right now, where you've got Harrison, whose velo took a nosedive last year. Then you got Robbie Ray, who you don't really know what you're going to get coming off the Tommy John. Then you've got Birdsong, who, yes, he showed tons of flashes and potential, but he's still kind of an unknown. And then you got Hicks, which we all saw how that worked out. And they're saying they want him back in the rotation. So outside of Webb, it's like you got a bunch of question marks. And I do not like the idea of saying, all right, cool, here's our 5. Let's go into the season, see what we got. That's why, getting another, high-end starter is so huge. And that's why I hope the Burnes deal works out. And if it doesn't, then you got to pivot. And whether you go after another arm on the market or make a trade for one, you need somebody else just because there's too many unknowns in your current rotation.
Yeah.
Another thing that not something I would recommend doing, but isn't out of the realm of possibility, is going after a hitter and saying, screw one of these top pitchers, and going and getting a Verlander or a Scherzer on like a very short-term deal. I personally, not what the route I would go. I would say screw it, split the difference with Burnes and make sure he comes here. But it's not out of question that they could go and get, I'd prefer a Verlander of the two, but they're both free agents and you could go and get somebody like that. And then you still have a lot of other under the radar free agents. That's kind of what Nick Bovey was asking.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Paul Sewald. He was the closer for the D-backs. He kind of struggled a little bit last year. He's getting a little bit older, but he's somebody you wouldn't pay a ton of money for. And you could be looking at a guy for, a little bounce back deal. Could give you some high leverage innings as well. So that's just another guy out there, more not a big name, ad necessarily, but a guy that could help you out a ton.
See, it sucks because the one guy out there that would solve all of our issues, like every issue you can think of, would be immediately solved if they were able to land Sasaki. It's just, I don't see that being even remotely close to a possibility. I'm sorry. I don't want to be pessimistic. I don't want to be negative. I give us like a 1% chance. I am fairly confident he's going to the Dodgers, and it pains me to say that. But it sucks because if they were somehow able to land him, it would solve all of our problems.
Yeah, I struggle with it. Like, I don't know if he's going to go to LA, but I also look at like San Diego and Boston or Chicago, and it's like, why would he choose San Francisco over those 3 teams? And I can't come up with a lot of great reasons other than, well, the Giants have proven to market their players well when they are here. So it's like, well, you'd make a ton of money in endorsements in San Francisco with given the market you'd be playing in. But, the opportunity to play with someone like Yu Darvish in San Diego, or Suzuki in Chicago, and Imanaga, like they're just seem to be better equipped to bring him in. And give him a level of comfort that he just couldn't have with San Francisco. And then even Boston, like big market, probably better team in a division that's still tough, but they're closer to the team that won the division last year than the Giants are to the Dodgers. So like I struggle with why he would choose the Giants over those other teams, which is hard.
Without a doubt. If I had to put my money on it, I think I think he's going to San Diego. I think the Snell thing really killed all momentum for him going to the Dodgers. I know, our superstar insiders like John Heyman, think he's still going to LA and that's the heavy favorite. But, I take anything that doesn't have to do with the New York team coming from him with a grain of salt. And I think the Yu Darvish thing is the big difference maker for me. That's like one of his idols, and I think I could absolutely see him going there. I think Chicago is a possibility. They've done a great job bringing in Japanese players over the last few years. I do think Seiya Suzuki does end up getting traded out of Chicago, or if he doesn't this offseason, I could see that at some point during the season. But I could still see him going there, and then Boston.
Yeah.
They very well could say, screw it, we're going to take a chance on getting another high-end arm like this, and then they're going to have another, deep rotation. They probably start trying to trade away from some of that depth to acquire some hitting. So,
yeah. Some of them. Oh, here really quick, Tom. As far as I know, Beck is healthy again. When I'm not sure. I haven't really heard anything. I know he was having some, I think, elbow issues, and that's what he got shut down for. To me, his days as a starter need to be done. If you're going to keep him, you're going to have to put him in the pen. But Beck, as far as I know, is healthy, and I really like him in either a swing. Him and Roop are two guys that I really like in kind of like at least a swing role where they're going to be like a bulk inning guy / spot starter in a pinch that could give you 5 innings. I like those guys. Rick says, what do you think it would take for Pablo Lopez? We're going to get into the New Year's resolutions here in a minute, but what do you think it would take to get Pablo Lopez? I think someone said earlier he has like 3 for 21.
Mm-hmm.
It's 28. He eats up innings. Career ERA of 3.9. He's been a really solid pitcher for a little while. 3.7 last few years, 3.75, 3.66, and then 4.08. But he's inexpensive. I mean, you're probably looking at least I don't know if you'd have to give up a top 100, but you're probably looking at least at like Wisenhunt going back. Plus, I'm not sure exact cost, but that would be my guess. Is you're at least looking at one of your young pitchers like Wisenhunt, and then a Toolsy prospect in your top 10.
Wade Meckler.
I said Toolsy. Who else? I almost continued that. I'm like, I just can't. What would the Las Vegas A's of Sacramento want for Brent Rooker?
Way too much.
Yeah. More than the Giants realistically should be willing to fork out. I think he has 2 years left on his deal, or is he on?
Yeah, he's got some team control. Yeah.
It'd be a lot.
It's not happening. We'll just put it that way.
Big time power hitter on a really cheap deal right now. He's got 3 years left. So he's got ARB2 and ARB3 seasons. So yeah, I remember looking into Rooker before because I felt the same way. I mean, he's had a huge career renaissance and ton of power, and he is not making anything. He's making 3.5 mil this year.
Yeah.
In his 30s.
Yeah.
So by the time his deal ends, you just let him walk at that point.
Yeah.
He'll be like 33 by the time he hits free agency, and you just let him go.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we're going to turn the page over to the New Year's resolutions. Before we do that, we do have like 135-ish people watching right now. If you do enjoy the content, you enjoy coming on here with us, please do hit the like, hit the subscribe button. It's helping a lot for channel growth. What do you guys think? We'll do a giveaway again at like 1,500, something like that. Yeah. I think that's a good one. We'll do that.
I think that sounds good.
Yeah, so we'll do another giveaway when we get up to 1,500. So we got a little ways to go. I think my goal is to hit like 1,750 by the time the season opener is. So that'd be like huge growth compared to last year. So appreciate all of you guys that are joining us on all of our live shows. We're going to keep them going on Fridays. And we'll also throw in occasional, like when we have interviews or guests. If we have breaking news, hopefully we have a Corbin Burnes one that we can drop here in the next few days. That'd be great. But we'll keep doing it on Fridays. When the season gets going, we'll have to figure out what will make our schedule. If we want to do it on like off days or what we want to do, we'll figure something out for that. But do please hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you're watching on X, jump over to YouTube so you can do that. And join us in the live chat. We appreciate all you guys. But moving over to New Year's resolution. So New Year's is around the corner. This is the last planned live show between now and 2025. So we are going to kind of come up with our New Year's resolutions for the Giants. I mean, honestly, for you guys, like it could be signing a certain player. It can be something more generic, like having a left fielder for more than 1 year consecutive starting there to end that stupid streak. It could be kind of anything. I'm going to kick it to these guys first, but we're going to, we're going to jump in on that today.
Yeah. Mine is something that we've talked about, privately and for a couple of years. My New Year's resolution is be enjoyable to watch. This has been a pretty bland team. This has been a team that has lacked energy. This has been a team that has lacked that, Giants energy that we're used to and accustomed to in the even years, hence the name here. It's been a team that's just been difficult to watch, plain and simple. And we still do it because we love this team and we want to see our guys win and succeed, but be enjoyable to watch. That's my biggest one. And secondly, I want to end the 30 home run drought. Those are my top two. Those are my resolutions. And the 30-year home run drought. Shoot, get three guys together. Get Ramos, Chapman, and Adames. Have all three of them hit it. But yeah, those are my resolutions for 25, and hopefully both come true.
All right. I mean, I think it's fair to say Corbin Burnes should be in there as far as, I don't see that deal getting done in the next couple days before the new year. I would start there, but as far as actually getting on the field and talking about improvements from, what we've seen the last 3-4 years now at least, I would say get back to playing situational baseball, playing small ball, and getting back to fundamentals. That's something that's really lacked on the field since Bochy left, and it's a very frustrating product to watch. I want to see them get back to doing more hit and runs, bunting guys over, actually executing sack flies. Like that's a huge thing for me. I honestly feel like this team the last couple of years could have added another 7, 8, 9, 10 wins just from, bringing guys in with, bases loaded, no outs. How many times did we see that and we're like, okay, nothing's happening here, and it seemed like it came true 90% of the time? Like that is terrible. Like you should feel like there is no way in hell I'm not getting a run in here with bases loaded and no outs. That's insane. So get back to situational baseball, move guys over, bring guys in, productive outs. Like that's my biggest thing. Make more contacts. And then on the pitching side of things, get walks down, give up less home runs. You're in one of the best pitchers parks in the league. Stop walking guys. You guys don't strike enough dudes out to be walking that many guys, and stop giving up home runs, and you'll win a lot more games. And it's really that simple. You play in a park where even when things have been bad the last few years, you're still playing in a ton of games where you're losing 2-0, 3-1, 4-2, these 1 and 2 run games that you're not executing on the hitting side of things just by playing small ball, because you're just on these, cold, windy nights, you're just not going to hit a ton of bombs. But just, playing clean baseball is like the biggest thing for me. And I think everything will work itself out from there. It'll be a lot more fun of a product to watch.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I said it a bunch of times last year, like especially towards the tail end of last year, that I felt like if this team was simply league average with a man on third and less than 2 outs last season, they would have won like 7 or 8 more games. Like they were so bad. They were possibly the worst team I have ever watched in all my years watching baseball in those situations. It was just atrocious and it was painful to watch. I agree with both of those. I only have 2 things from like a statistical standpoint that would be my New Year's resolutions. But on big picture, like kind of what Dan said, like make this a watchable product that's fun to watch with, bring some flair back. I watch a guy like Luis Matos playing in Venezuela right now. And for anybody that hasn't seen some of the highlights there, I think they post them on Instagram and stuff. They just wrapped up their season, but he brought back like Jorge Soler in the World Series vibes. He hit like a huge home run the other day and he was like yelling at the dugout, and it's like, get some excitement on this team and not just be boring. So like for me, it'd be like from a philosophy standpoint, like get a little younger, get a little bit more flair, just make this team more exciting. I think having a guy like Jung-Hoo Lee back, hopefully for a full season, that's going to help. He's an exciting guy to watch. But yeah, and like Ricky said, totally agree. Small ball, bring back just winning baseball. Like that's, to me, it's a big thing. Being smart on the base paths, which they weren't. Although, depending on which analytic you looked at, it said that they were like one of the better base running teams. And I'm like, did I watch the same team that these numbers are saying? Because there's no way in hell. But like, go back to playing just winning baseball and doing the little things well. But from the 2 statistical things I have, the first one for me, Dan, he talked about the 30 home runs. I want to see someone steal 30 bags. We haven't had that since Dave Roberts in 07, of all people. Freaking Dave Roberts. Like, to me, that is more embarrassing than not having a 30 home run guy, because we can blame the park and the weather and the wind and all the stuff for the home runs, but there is no excuse to not have speed in this ballpark. So to me, someone's got to swipe 30 bags. I don't care if it's, Fitzgerald. I don't care if it's Grant McCray. I don't care if it's Wilmer Flores. Just kidding. That's never going to happen. But no, I don't care who does it. Somebody, for the love of God, steal 30 bags. I'm tired of it. The second one, I want to see 5 pitchers eclipse 140 innings. I'm setting the bar low. Like, I'm not even setting this bar high. And I say 140 because, for anybody wondering, here were the Giants' innings last season. You had Logan Webb, which was super wonderful, at 204. Next highest, 124. Next one, 109. That's terrible. Like, that's just embarrassing.
Not winning baseball.
Yeah, and I feel pretty confident, if healthy, you have 2 in Webb and Ray. Like, I know a lot of people aren't huge on Ray. Historically, he is very reliable at eating up innings. So I think you have 2 confidently in those 2. If you get Burnes, I think you have a third. And I am a believer, because I think Birdsong, I mean, we're kind of cheating here. He threw 72, but if you factor in what he did in the minors, I think that number was in like the 120s, 130s. So I think Birdsong won't have as much of a jump. Harrison would have easily cleared it if he didn't have the injuries at the end of the year. Hopefully he's healthy and stronger and everything going into next season. So like, I do think if you do sign Burnes, I think you have a real shot at having 5 of those guys, barring injuries. Yeah. So I think that's a good benchmark for them to, like, let's get 5 guys in the rotation that are going to give us decent amounts of innings again. So that would be, from a statistical standpoint, that is my, that would be my goal. And I mean, honestly, even going back to like the last few years, you had 2 in 2023, only 3 people cleared 100 innings. If we go back to 2022, you had 3. You had Webb, Rodon, and Cobb. So, I mean, it's just, it's been kind of an issue for a while. So those would be mine. Anybody in the chat, you guys throw yours in there if you want us to read off a few from you guys, but
I have some half joke ones. If you guys want to hear those, I texted you a couple.
Really offended.
Yeah, if you're easily offended, just close your ears for a little bit. Yeah, there you go. One of mine is teach Patrick Bailey how to hit right-handed. Another one,
Or
teach
don't allow him to.
Yeah, just
or don't allow him to. Teach him how to block consistently. Teach Lamont Wade to not watch a fastball go down the middle in a 3-0 count. Teach Wilmer Flores how to use his legs. What else is there? Trying to think what the caveman brain's got going on.
Speaking of Wilmer, I saw a thread the other day on X of the 2021 division series with the Dodgers. And one of the threads that a Dodger fan was going and trying to roast Giants fans with and trying to trigger people with was Wilmer getting absolutely hosed at third base. He was going first to third, and whoever was in right field for the Dodgers at the time, I don't really remember, just absolutely hosed him. And you're like, okay, cool. This is just a highlight of the Giants scoring a run. Nope, it immediately pans over to Wilmer getting hosed by like 20 feet. I'm like, what was he thinking? Please tell me nobody at that time was sending him. Like,
you know how slow
the dude
Wilmer
runs
Flores
through
is?
mud.
You want to know how slow Wilmer
Oh yeah,
Flores is?
we've talked about it for sure.
Gregor Blanco could throw him out from right field.
It'd be a 20
Tom Murphy
hopper.
would catch him stealing.
Oh my gosh. So you know it's bad.
Oh God.
Maybe that's what the Giants should do to bring more excitement at the games. The 7th inning stretch is everybody just in the stadium bets on whether or not Wilmer's going to get the bag or Murphy throws Wilmer out. That's just the 7th inning entertainment. The Braves have the guy that, he's like a track runner or whatever. He sprints through the outfield, gives a random person the stands a head start. In this case, it's just Wilmer running the bases. Everybody just pointing and laughing at him.
I think the next New Year's resolution should be to get Camilo to change his name officially to Carmelo. I love it, Tom.
Hey, walk off. Benji didn't he got a triple for the cycle?
He hit a cycle, yeah. I mean, it was kind of a generous cycle, but he did it.
And all things considered, that hit that Benji got, if Lamont Wade Jr. hits that, he's barely getting to second base.
Oh, he pulls up into second, 100%. He doesn't even try.
Yeah,
100%.
He pulls a hammy and falls to the ground before hitting second base.
Just does the army crawl into the bag. Good back pedal first to third at almost 50 years old, faster than Flores running to first and third. You know what I wish I could see is like an NFL cornerback doing a back pedal drill all the way around first to third with Wilmer running, just clocking both of them.
Oh, bro, I could probably beat him doing that.
They would roast him so bad.
Dude, what about Wilmer doing the sausage races in Milwaukee? Who wins that?
All of the sausages. Like all of them. Even the one that falls down.
You can put Wilmer in one of those corgi races and he's gonna lose.
Dude. Oh, man.
Or instead of like the Diamondbacks, they used to do like the one that was like Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling. Instead, we actually have Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson race Wilmer and see who wins. Guaranteed Randy Johnson.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Randy Johnson today would win.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, no question. I'm talking today, not in the past.
Oh, man. If anybody has any good ones, throw them in there. We have Caleb said Bailey should just give up hitting right-handed entirely. He's pretty dang solid from the left side. I think all of us agree. Like, he has so much more upside from the left. Some guys have tried it and they struggle, but
I wouldn't say he's solid, but I would say he's definitely more competent from the left side.
Yeah, he has a lot more power from the left at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
He's inconsistent kind of no matter which side you put him on right now, but definitely much better from the left and a lot more upside from that side. he's hit a few tanks from that side where it's like he's the one guy that I don't understand how he clearly has game power, because we've seen him hit some balls like 460 feet.
Yeah.
But then he ends the year with like 7. It's like, how does this guy not hit more? Like, how are you not a 15-ish home run a year guy when you can hit one off the freaking scoreboard in Wrigley?
We know why.
Yeah.
George, you're my new
Love
favorite,
it, George.
bro.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Caleb says Cedric Mullen gave up switch hitting and became an all-star in the same season. Yeah, some guys can do it. Some guys can't, though. Like I know Pablo tried it and he looked somehow worse hitting left-handed against lefties than he did hitting right-handed against lefties, where he was pretty bad in the back half of his career. And then he tried it and it was just even worse from the left side, but to the point where he actually went back to switch hitting. So yeah, I don't know. We'd have to see. Hope, it might turn into just one of those things where they have to, I don't like throwing the platoon word out there, but for catchers, it's just more of a reality than other positions. And it just might be the case where he, basically is platooned full time because he just cannot hit him at all.
I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
So. For anybody that thinks we're being too hard on Bailey, especially from the right side, you guys know how many home runs he hit from the right side last year?
0.
You know how many RBIs he had last year? 3. With a 180 average. Like he was just plain and simple not a big leaguer from the right side at all. Like these are not just exaggerations.
Pull up his splits in the minors. Like he was like a 450 OPS guy from the right in the minors. That's why he came up to the majors and he was actually good his rookie year from the right side versus left. His numbers were actually better from the right. And I flat out told people, I was like, I would expect a huge regression there. Like that's not going to happen. You guys can check the tape from my videos last year. I was like, there's no chance in hell he's going to do that again. And sure enough, he comes out this year and like Ricky just said, he was just abysmal from that side. And he looked just like the guy that he was in the minor leagues from the right side. It's like, dude, you need to just stop with this. It doesn't work. Like, you caught lightning in a bottle for half a season. Good for you. Don't do it anymore. Like, go back. Just hit lefty.
And see, to each of your points plus the comments, it's like nobody talked about it, but I felt like I was the only one that talked about it for months. Like one of the team's biggest needs was a quality backup catcher.
Yeah.
Like Tom Murphy is not the answer. And Patrick Bailey has shown for the last 2 years, he cannot play a full season. He needs to only play against righties. He needs to be platooned maybe 3 starts a week. Like, I'm sorry, he can come in as a defensive replacement if you really want him to. But one of my biggest needs for the team was, you need a shortstop, you need a pitcher, and you need a backup catcher. Like, I had backup catcher above first base and right field, and that says a lot. So, I mean, like what Caleb just said, look at that WRC plus the second half, 35, dude. Like,
he was not playable, plain and simple. But the guy wins a Gold Glove award, and then people completely forget, what actually happened in the season.
Yeah,
and I remember.
Did he have like a 3 for 70 stretch?
Yes, dude.
Dude, you just plain and simple cannot have that multiple years in a row. And for anybody that thinks that you can live with a guy doing what Bailey did last year as a starter, look at Austin Hedges. And that's what your career is going to look like if you don't figure it the hell out from the hitting side. Great defensive catcher. You're going to find a role on teams. You might be in a platoon at catcher because there's just not that many good catchers in the league. That's really what it comes down to more than anything. And obviously Yachty and Posey have retired, so that's another big factor. But ultimately, the guy will not be a starter long-term if he doesn't figure it out. And like I've said on here to you guys before, I mean, if he has another season like that, especially in the first half, do not be surprised if your first round pick goes to a catcher. Just saying. I mean, people thought it was crazy when Farhan drafted Bailey when they already had Bart in the system. The same thing could happen with Bailey. You know, you got to figure it out. You have to be playable. You cannot just be an ofer in the lineup every single day. And I'm not saying he can't do it, but changes will have to be made, and he will have to come in better shape.
Yeah.
And same thing goes for Murphy too.
Yeah. I think we're kind of stuck with Murphy, honestly, at this point. Like it just that's how it feels. I think they're going to let Murphy play out his year, and they'll dump him after the year. But I just like I am 100% on board with Ricky here. Where if that's the best, I mean, because you kind of go best player available, but if there's not like a ton of great options at pick 13 or whatever they ended up with, a college catcher is not a bad thing to do because they are so thin at that position in the entire system. Like catcher and shortstop, those are the two positions in their system that they are the most thin at. So going and getting a college catcher that you're hopeful could in the first round that you're hopeful could accelerate through the system is not a bad idea in the slightest for two reasons. One, if Bailey sucks, like this guy could be the future. Like if he just can't figure it out with the bat, he could end up being the guy that's the future. But better if Bailey does figure it out with the bat and you're like, cool, we have confidence in this guy, you can trade him. Catchers, like you could trade the guy you draft. Catchers retain their value almost better than any other position.
Yeah.
Arguably, at least. You kind of have pitchers, shortstops, and catchers. Those are the three positions that tend to retain their value really well if they're at least performing. So, to me, like it makes a ton of sense to go that route.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's arguably the team's biggest need as far as the farm system is concerned. Catching. So, I mean, I'll never forget when the Tom Murphy news dropped, man. And I saw that we signed him. I was immediately pissed. And I remember messaging you guys in the chat that winter. And I was just like, what the F, bro? Like, what is this? I was like, why did we sign this bum? And then people, oh, you're just a hater, came in, blah, 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 blah. And then look what happened. So,
yeah. When everyone brought up his power against lefties, and I pulled up, I remember going, I just remember this guy not having a great arm, and I pulled up his stolen bases, like the caught stealings versus how many people stole bags on him, and in 2023 he went 1 for 28 throwing guys out. I was like, do you know how hard it is to go 1 for 28? Like usually 2 guys a year trip. Like, come on, man.
Bro, do you remember the spring training games and he was just throwing just ducks and 5-hopping them the second?
He threw more balls into center field than he did to the second baseman. And those are just the ones that got there. Like, it was terrible. It was so ugly. And then the season starts and he mysteriously just starts dropping the exchange on every ball. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he just doesn't want to throw the ball into the center.
Drop them.
Oops. Like, it was bad, man. Like they desperately needed backup catchers. And that's the reality is that's why Bailey is going to get overplayed yet again next season. It's because we have Tom Murphy backing him up. And then Bailey's play is going to fall off a cliff in the second half again. And we're all going to be in the same boat next year, pissed off because they don't have a backup. And like half the problem, Bailey deserves his criticisms and on that regard. But like half the problem is just that they don't have a backup for him.
Yeah, exactly.
So
they did sign Max Stassi, and obviously he's not a guy that's going to be a great hitter, but he has played a lot in the last couple of years for the Angels. So
yeah.
I do kind of wonder if that does put in, a little bit of pressure on Murphy.
Was that the guy that hasn't played in 2 years, or who was that catcher that we signed who hasn't played in like 2 years? I forgot what his name was.
He didn't play the last couple of years. His last 2 seasons with the Angels, though, he played 87 and 102 games.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you're not getting any kind of hitting production, which is the reason why you obviously signed Tom Murphy, then you might as well go with the guy that can actually give you a glove back there, because I really don't care what kind of offensive production you're getting out of out of Murphy if you're not getting defense. You absolutely need defense back there.
What-
I mean, even when Murphy had no chance at throwing guys out last year, he was spiking balls down to second so bad that they were going out into right field, and you're giving up 2 bags. Like you just cannot do that in close games, especially at home.
Yeah.
When offense is going to come at a premium.
It's like Cody always says, he'll always have that home run in Boston.
I thought you were going to say, like Cody always says, I don't give a crap if my backup catcher hits a lick as long as they can.
I'm not going to lie. I was going to say that. And I was like, wait, remember that bomb in Fenway? That's what
he did crank that one.
He did.
It left Fenway, good for him. Yeah. I think Gran brought up Luke Schleiger he was down in Eugene. He played about, he only played about 20 games down there. He was their sixth round pick back in 2023. He's probably the one guy right now they have in their system, but even then he's barely played in Eugene. He's likely going to be in Eugene to start next season. Sugiste has kind of fallen off. O'Neal Perez probably doesn't belong behind the plate much longer. Your Sugiste just can't hit right now. He's up in AA. He'll probably get pushed up to AAA sooner than later, but I did say, like, I don't really care if they can hit, if they can at least play defense. So Sugiste might be a guy that you see here in 2 years being your backup, but I kind of would prefer if you could at least get somebody that's somewhat competent against left-handed pitching back there, that also plays solid defense. But I'm not really sure what else they really have in the system. We'll see how Schleiger does next season. Maybe he can kind of start pushing his way up a little bit because he is a bit older.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anybody else got any other topics we want to hit before we jump off? We usually try and keep it to an hour and a half. We're already past that, so as per usual.
Do you have a question for you guys?
So,
what would you guys give the Reds for Stevenson? Like, say you send Bailey for Stevenson, their catcher. They keep in mind neither the Giants or the Reds would do it.
Yeah.
Because the Reds don't really have a ton of depth at catcher like the Giants. Stevenson's obviously the better player. What would you guys give up in a trade for Stevenson if you're sending Bailey over there in a swap? Because you would have to give up some additional prospects.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because, I mean, he would be a major upgrade. And, I mean, obviously Bailey has a great reputation around the league for people that don't watch his hitting.
I mean, he's got what, 3 more years left, 2 years left on his deal. What's he at? He's 28. Next year is going to be his age 29 season.
Next year will be his last season under contract. He'll be a free agent at age 30 in 2027.
Oh, so he has 2 more years.
Yeah, this year and next year. He's making about $4.5 million.
I'm gonna be honest. Because of the contract and age and everything, you probably would be able to get away with just straight up at that point. He's a better player, but I mean, he is theoretically. But people around the league seem to value defense, especially out of the catcher. I don't know.
Here's another one. What about Cal Raleigh? This is all hypothetical.
I don't think there's any chance in hell Seattle would get Cal Raleigh.
I know. I'm just saying hypothetical for fun. I'll give you Bailey, Yaz, Wilmer, Murphy. I'll give you who else is there? You can have Wisenhunt, you can have Harrison, you could have my house. I don't care. Like, give me Cal
Raleigh. I mean, I'd probably throw Bailey and Tibbs in an offer, or like Bailey Wisenhunt, something like that. Eldridge would still be off limits, but
for Stevenson, yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
258 with 19 homers.
Yeah,
And
From a
he's
production
not bad
standpoint, especially
defensively.
offensively, he's a better player. I'm just saying purely from a like what GMs seem to value about these days. I'm not sure you'd actually have to give up like anything other than just straight up, but it would probably be not like a super high end prospect in my opinion.
No.
We
I don't think
value it more, but
obviously, yeah. Obviously, the contract is the biggest reason, like,
yeah,
teams wouldn't be willing to do it, and Bailey's making nothing. And obviously, you still got to give Bailey time. You do have to give him a chance to prove that he can
Yeah.
turn the hitting around. He can get in shape and lay off the donuts and last more than 120 games,
See,
or last more than 120 games and actually being able to contribute.
I'm more
I
of
should say.
a Joey Bart guy myself personally. I'll let these two give the rundown on Trent Harris. They know a little bit more. What I will say is I shot my shot with him to get him on the show.
Yeah, we're trying, guys. Like that's a guy that for anybody that has watched the specifically for anybody that has watched the Giants put out a video of the guys that went to Oracle Park, the prospects that like went to Oracle. They got to work out there, kind of they learned social media stuff and they talk with like different players and people in the organization and then they did some work, community work, all the different stuff. They put out one of those videos and Trent Harris and Jeremiah Jenkins are the two guys that stood out to me in particular, just personality wise. They seem like super fun guys. So yeah, Trent, if you end up watching this, we want to get you on the show. Dude is awesome. He'd be a lot of fun. But if we're talking from a, him as a prospect, he is, he's going to be a reliever. That's where he's at. And he has just a phenomenal, at least fastball and breaking pitch. I think technically he might actually be a 4-pitch guy. But his slider to me, like his curveball slider combo, it's just nasty. And he throws like in the high 90s, like 96, 97, I want to say. He got all the way to Richmond last season. My bold prediction, and I'm sure for anybody when I eventually down the road, when I say, breakout prospects or people to watch, like who I think is going to break through to the majors, spoiler alert, Trent Harris is going to be on that list. Like that's my big guy. That guy that I think is going to make the biggest leap to get all the way to the majors next season is Trent Harris. Guy is disgusting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I compare it kind of to the rise that we saw with Landon Roop last year. Nobody in their right mind would have expected Roop to be making the opening day roster last year, and he just tore it up in spring training. And they're like, all right, well, this guy, we got to get him on the roster. Threw him in the pen, threw him in some very weird situations, if we're being honest, given his repertoire and the type of pitcher he was. They didn't really, in my opinion, throw him in very good spots. I would have liked to see him in the Tristan Beck role or, starting more games. But with Trent Harris, he's a guy you could see make the big leagues very early on in the season, depending how things shake out with the roster. And, be a guy that could work his way into late innings by the end of the year. He's got great strikeout stuff. I mean, he had over 100 Ks last year in like 79 innings. So he's a guy that a lot of fans should look forward to seeing next year. And I think he'll start in Sacramento, even though he only pitched 3 innings last year in Richmond. But I think that's where they'll have him, and I think he'll be one of the first guys we could see come up next year. He is 25, so this is not some young guy that it's like we got to put our kid gloves on with him. So this is a guy that we should definitely see next year if he continues his current rise.
Yeah, turns 26 in January too, so like he's definitely on the older side. Grant says, so that's 4 arms that aren't on the 40-man that we could see debut: Whitman, Harris, Sanchez, Wisenhunt. I would say Whitman is probably unlikely, but I definitely think Harris, Sanchez, and Wisenhunt are going to this season. Whitman will probably start in Richmond. Might force, if he does the birdsong route, maybe he shoves his way up, but I think unlikely in all reality. which forearms on the, I mean, there's a lot of people that could be casualties on the 40 from a pitcher side.
Yeah.
Which guys, I'm not sure off the top of my head. I mean, there's a handful that I would be
Like
more
Austin
willing to
Warren's
move.
one of them.
Yeah.
That could be taken off the 40 man. I honestly wouldn't worry about casualties as much.
Yeah.
I try to tell people this every year. Come spring training, guys are gonna get hurt. They have ways of giving guys rest if they're battling through fatigue, inflammation, stuff like that. It's so much easier with pitchers just to stash guys, on the injured list. So I wouldn't worry about that. That's not really something you're going to do unless you're trying to really pull off a trade that's going to benefit you and you're actually going to get something in return to, help the big league roster. So
and two or three guys
I
a year
wouldn't
typically hit the 60-day where it doesn't, where they're not taking up a 40 spot while they're on the IL. So
Yeah.
Fun. All right. Well, I think we're at a good spot to wrap it up. Like I said, we will, we're probably not going to put out another live until next Friday. We're going to just keep it on the Fridays unless something changes. If something changes, we get a guest or something like that. We'll drop usually I put it out on X, is most likely where you'll find it. Or if there is a Burnes signing or someone else, we will go live, for that reaction as well. But otherwise, I don't think I have really any other plans this weekend for any more. We'll probably put something out Monday, I'm sure, and I'll get a couple videos out next week. But yeah, for as far as live shows, you guys can catch us next Friday.
Yeah. I just want to touch on this one question before we go with George. What percentage, in my opinion, for Burnes and Sasaki? Burnes, if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said like 85%. Now it's more like 75%. Sasaki, I think there's a 1% chance, but these guys might have a higher, idea than me.
Yeah. Probably about that.
Wait, guys, before I let you go, we just got breaking news in. This is live from John Heyman. Corbin Burnes to the Diamondbacks, 6 years, $210 million. Opt out after 2 years. Just announced literally 30 seconds ago.
Oh my God.
30 seconds ago.
All that. And he goes to the Diamondbacks.
210, 6 years, opt out after 2
so
years.
Weird how they come out with these huge multi-year deals with starting pitchers.
Wow.
Oh man, that is really a sour ass way to
I'm pissed.
Oh.
Hey, our boy David C, he said Toronto all the way the entire time.
Bro. What happened to that whole he went
so everything we just said earlier, just go ahead and ignore it.
Yeah, I just said 75%. Now it's 0. What
the timing of that question and you bringing that up right before we're gonna end the show, and then you see that pop up.
Hang on, I need to see.
This guy probably knew.
He probably already knew. John
and
Heyman didn't misspell a name or something.
Dude, where did the Diamondbacks come from?
Names.
Where the hell did they come from?
Is that 35? That's 35. Yeah, I'm like doing.
It makes sense. He lives in Arizona, but like, where did the Diamondbacks come from?
I don't understand that because he's 30, going to be 31 this year, I think, and you're doing an opt out after 2 years. Like, why not just go to San Francisco? I mean, I don't know what they're offering him, but if I'm the Giants, why not offer 220, give him 7 years, lower that AAV a little bit, screw the opt-outs. Maybe he really wanted the opt-outs, but I don't understand why you wouldn't just want to take over 200 million from a place you want to be and call it a day and not have to worry about, opting out. Because I mean, at 33 years old, what are you really going to get on the market that's better than that? You know what I mean? That's just, I don't know. That's crazy to me.
I'm trying to see, like, specs on this deal.
I
That's
understand it from the Diamondbacks' perspective. I mean, for them, they're getting a high-end pitcher. They're in win-now mode. They desperately need pitching. Their pitching was atrocious last year.
Dude.
Everybody talks about their young arms, but their young arms really have not been that good. Zach Gallen's really the only one that's really been great. Merrill Kelly's, reliable, but
he's just getting older.
he's an older guy. He's a late bloomer.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm just tripping because there was no peep of Arizona being interested in him at all.
Yeah.
That's kind of how they were with Greinke and Bumgarner too, like just completely out of the blue. And we know how those contracts aged.
Insane timing.
The opt-out, like, to me, I think there was no chance Posey was putting that opt-out in after 2 years.
No, I wouldn't have either. Screw that.
He's like, no, if I'm going to invest in this, like, I want you here. Like, I'm not doing that. And the Diamondbacks, like you said, it totally makes sense for them. They would love for this guy to pitch 2 years, be like, sorry, see ya. And hopefully they can, like, for them, they're probably like, maybe we can win a World Series with this guy and then, go on a run like they did 2 years ago and close the deal that time. Like,
the issue that the Giants have had with these opt-outs is you're constantly resetting your roster, and you can't build and create a direction for your team when you do that. So you have to get away from that, and that's the reason why I think that we're finally seeing somebody with a little common sense say, hey, I'm not going to just go all in for this year, because then every single year you're like, oh, shit, here we go again. We got to hope we can land one of these big-time free agents.
Well, now
it's going to work in your favor.
Well, now this hypothetical question, which is the title of this live show, the title of this video when it drops, and what we've been talking about for 2 hours all comes into reality at the very tail end of this.
Brutal.
This is insane.
That's a swift kick in the junk, man.
Oh my gosh.
That's brutal.
So what do we do now? I mean, is it actual smoke? Like those murmurs we were seeing and hearing? Is it legit smoke? Because
like we said, I don't know. Me personally, like I said, I'm big on Peralta. Other than Peralta, there's not really a ton of other arms out there. You could get Lopez, which you're going to give up a smaller package for, in my opinion, because Lopez is making, $13 million a year more than Peralta is.
Didn't someone say 3 for 21? Or did I totally misread that?
So Lopez is making 21 a year right now in his current contract.
That makes way. That's what I was like. I don't know. It's gonna be a big deal.
Yeah, Lopez already got his deal, so he's making significantly more than Peralta is. So if you go and get a guy like Lopez, cool, you're probably not giving as much up in return. And then you probably go and have Minnesota package our boy Correa with him. No.
Look,
no, I'm just kidding.
Here's my question.
But
what is the offer that we've had on the table then?
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if it gets leaked.
It must have been under 200 million then at that point, because if the money is close, I don't know why he would take Arizona's money and pitch in a hitter's park and then also take the opt-outs too.
Here's an update. Bob Nightingale. Corbin Burnes was offered more by the Giants and Blue Jays, but big tax difference in Arizona.
I bet you the Giants had 7 for like 210, something like that. I don't know.
No, because he accepted 210.
Yeah, I'm saying I think they would have had it over 7 years, or like 7, or gotcha. 7 for like 220 I didn't see or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't see the years.
I think it's that. With no opt-out, probably. And he was like, nah.
By no means did I ever expect Arizona, but this was always my fear of just this dragging out forever, and then some random-ass team coming in the picture. Like, I thought it would have been more of like a Boston or Chicago before some of the other deals have come through. But, I don't feel any better about getting Roki now because, again, money is not in the picture. It's literally Roki choosing where Roki wants to go, and that's about it. I mean,
what do we do if we don't land Roki?
You're either rolling with the young pitching or you're making a random ass trade for a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
Or
wild, bro.
I don't know. At this point, I mean, I feel like your best bet might be just go bigger in on a hitter. I mean, you have the extra money to spend it. I mean, you're not rolling over money here.
If you're going to keep saying that we have like a huge belief in our young pitching, put your money where your mouth is. Go get some hitters and just give the young guys some support and go get Santander. Casillo's out there. Luis Casillo's out there. That's another name we didn't mention earlier, but is supposedly the Mariners are trying to move him. You probably wouldn't have to give up much to get him. If you wanted him, he has 3 more years on his deal.
Someone like that.
Yeah, I think it's 3.
This is insane.
Dude, that's just I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know where you necessarily go. I don't have the perfect answer. I mean, I think Santander is a good start, just because that can improve the power, the contact skills in your lineup. He's a run producer. You stick him in the middle with guys like Adames and Ramos.
So Castillo, he could have 4 years left. He has a vesting option in 2028, his age 35 season, but he would have to throw 180 innings in 2027, which, I mean, at age 34, probably not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, his contract, he's making an average annual salary of $21.6 million right now. That's your luxury tax hit. Payroll is about a little over 24 mil a year. So yeah, I mean, you could do that. I mean, the only thing that sucks with Seattle is they are deep on pitching. So them trading him doesn't really hurt them much, and they're not going to be looking for, really pitching in return. If anything, they're going to be wanting hitting. I don't really know what the Giants would have to offer in that situation, but
I think it'd be more of a dump, honestly. I think it's more of a salary dump. They don't want to pay him because they have so much pitching.
Well, yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. They don't need to pay him anymore. They don't need him because now that you have I don't know what a deal would look like for Castillo. It's really hard to say like what they would even be looking after other than clearing salary, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, you'd have to think if they're going to do anything, it's going to be on the pitching side, but I don't know. I honestly don't feel great about them doing anything now that Burnes and Buehler are gone. I don't feel great about them doing anything on the pitching side.
Not unless Roki just randomly comes, but I don't see it.
Yeah, and as far as like the percent chance we give of that happening, I honestly would give that like less than like 3%, because you're competing with the Cubs, the Phillies, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Angels, the Padres. You're competing with a ton of teams that, he could easily go with them over. Unless he's doing some deep dive research on San Francisco, I mean, there's nothing that really stands out about the Giants that would make him want to come here.
Yeah. I think like 5% would be the most generous I could give them. Like I don't even think it's that high. So I agree with you guys.
I don't know. I still don't see Bregman happening. I mean, I could see some random Pete Alonso pivot or Santander pivot. Alonso would be, again, kind of a weird fit with Eldridge coming, unless you're set on him playing left field or just moving Alonso to DH. I don't know how he feels about that. But I don't know, man. It's a tough call because, I mean, again, we didn't really think the hitting thing's all that serious, but I mean, I really hope that they plan on spending some more money, because your off season looks a whole lot different if all it revolves around is Willy Adames. Obviously, that's a huge get. That's your biggest need. That was great, but it's kind of like, what else? You lost Blake Snell, and you're replacing him with Willy Adames. Are you really getting significantly better as far as a win-loss standpoint goes?
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to say.
Honestly, the answer to all this might be the same thing that I mentioned a bunch of times at the beginning of the offseason and at the end of the last season. developmental year. Go young, let the kids play, accept that we're not going to be that great, and just figure out what the hell we have.
It really comes down to, though, like what we've talked about through all the Farhan years. It's like, please, 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 just give us a clear direction, what you're going to do, and stick to it. Stop going back and forth and playing down the middle and go, oh, well, we might want to spend a little bit of money here, but only at the right price, and if we don't have to overpay. And then we're going to go and sign this veteran here and spend a little bit too much money on, a Robbie Ray to right our wrongs of some of these other crap contracts we've given out. It's like, don't even do that. Go fully young if you're not going to spend the money, and go all in. I mean, these owners are worth way too much damn money to be, skating down the middle.
I'm in shock, boys. This is insane. This is insane. I'm trying to see if I can get any other details, any specifics, any hints of where we're pivoting.
Yeah.
I don't expect anything from Sleepy Slusser.
Sleepy Slusser. Goodness, man.
Yeah. Well, no, it's crazy. I'm not sure. We're going to find out soon if the Giants are really going to be serious about trying to compete, if they're going to go try and bring in one of these big names from the offensive side and just put faith in your young pitching. But wow. I mean, the route of trying to compete via pitching kind of just went out the window. So it's either going to be get some thump in your lineup, get some guys that can do some damage, lengthen the lineup out, or we're going to be in for probably a long year from a win-loss perspective. But, I would say this, it sucks as Giants fans if we're going to watch three teams just run away with the West ahead of us. But, it just might be in their best interest to figure out what they have in some of these young guys and just get that. Yeah, it's something that's been needing to be done for years, and it just might be the fact that they need to do it this season.
The timing was just insane.
I know. We were like literally signing off, and it was like, whoa.
If I hadn't grabbed that last question, which pertained to this very topic, we would have ended right when it dropped. That's insane. Yeah. I can't see anything else, but yeah, dude, that's just, I'm in shock.
Yeah. Well, boys, Trevor Bauer it is. That would be the most dog shit pivot of all time. That would be like the equivalent of going from Bruce Bochy to Gabe Kapler after everything that happened with Kapler in LA.
I was gonna say Alex Wood, but you got me beat.
The sad thing is, from a production standpoint, Bauer would actually probably not even be bad. It's just the nightmare off the field that he would bring.
Yeah, maybe we'd have to bring Jock back. Right after he signed with Texas, we got to go trade for him.
Hey, we said we wanted entertainment. Just let's go with just bring Jock and Tommy Pham. Just call it good. That can be our seventh inning stretch. Just put slap bet.
Put the gloves on him.
Put power slap.
Maybe we do need Tommy Pham. Him and Willie Adames just try to take everybody out to the parking lot.
Imagine.
Let's just sign Jesse Winker.
He's still out there, huh?
There's our entertainment.
He is still out there.
Because I remember I brought him up on a live a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, he's one of those guys that, I could see him getting signed and we just completely overlook it. And he was really good last year. He's just a little bit older player, and I don't think he's really a great fit for what the Giants need at all. Too much redundancy there.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm sure we're going to have a lot more reactions to the Corbin stuff as the news kind of, as more details come out, I should say. So I'm sure we'll put it out another video here in the next day or two regarding Corbin Burnes. I'll probably cut this segment out, I'm sure, because a lot of people aren't going to see this part that jumped in that they aren't going to stick around for 2 full hours on this live. So I'll jump this part out. But yeah, wow, pretty crazy.
Yeah. That's all I can say.
I don't know. I don't see us getting any quick news from the Giants pivoting right away. But hey, I mean, maybe we hear something crazy by tomorrow. But man,
It's
that
that's just like I said, it's a swift kick in the junk to end the night. That's all I can describe it as.
Being a Giants fan our last few years is like a form of cruel and unusual punishment, man.
the weird thing with it is like had there not been instant rumors about getting Corbin Burnes right after the Willie Adames news broke, because I don't know if you remember, like instantly we were hearing Giants are still in on Corbin Burnes after Adames signing.
Yeah.
Everybody would be totally content, but it's just like every time it's like the Giants constantly go and grab your attention and with these big name guys, and you get sucked into it every single time.
I think it's a fact
And obviously
they were like the favorite too, allegedly.
Yeah. And it's a starting pitcher. It's not Juan Soto. We were all smart enough to know Soto wasn't coming here ever, and that was never going to happen, especially after, Stanton, Harper, Judge, Ohtani, all of them. But it's like with Burnes and being from California, playing college ball in the Bay Area, you actually think that's a possibility. And then they go and offer him more money than what he took, and he took it. The opt-out thing is just so odd to me. Like, I understand it's like, okay, I can get out of Arizona, but I just I don't understand it. I really don't. From the player standpoint, I don't understand how that's so much more beneficial, because even if the market continues to go up for starting pitchers, I mean, look, he wanted Steven Strasburg money. He didn't get it. The Steven Strasburg deal was years ago. Like, the starting pitching market hasn't exploded that much like it has for star hitters.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are you trying to accomplish here by possibly opting out in your mid-30s almost?
Yeah.
Like,
and Strasburg was better at the time of that deal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I just do not see it at all. I don't know what I may be missing here, but I don't see it. I mean, ultimately, guys like Verlander and Scherzer are unicorns, and if you're Burnes, you can't just expect that you're going to be like those guys and pitch like till you're damn near 40 years old and be pitching at an extremely high level. Like, you can fall off at any point once you get into your mid-30s. So I don't know. I don't know where they go from here, but I mean, I don't know. To me, man, if you really truly want to win now, go and get yourself a middle of the order bat at this point, and hope your young pitching can handle the workload, and somebody pops off this year. Ray returns to what he was before, and maybe you go and get yourself somebody before the trade deadline as a starting pitcher. I don't know. I see a big starting pitcher trade happening before the season comes.
All I know is that I was happy 20 minutes ago.
Vibes were a lot higher, folks, for those of you that jumped in after the news. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, Santander and drawing a blank on his name.
Kaspic says Bregman season.
No, God.
I don't know, dude.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
You see my face, guys? This is what it feels like.
I don't know. I'd probably lean in on Santander and Scott at this point. And it's gonna suck. Our pitching's gonna be another year of not a lot of innings probably getting met, unless
it's just
lean in on the dominant bullpen. That's all I can say.
Can I vent for a second? It's so frustrating because your best pitcher last year, the second half of the year at least, Blake Snell, leaves and goes to the Dodgers. And the next available guy in the market is Burnes, and he goes to the Diamondbacks. That's like, bro. That's worst case scenario.
Oh no! Worst case scenario is gonna still to come. Wait till Roki signs with San Diego,
dude. That's what I was just gonna get to that. And then what happens when Roki's posted and goes to either San Diego or L? Oh my god, dude.
Might just quit. Be like, catch y'all in 2026. I'm just kidding. This is just brutal, man. Just get a bat. I mean, like Ricky said, just go get a bat and try and find a pitcher that can eat up some innings. Like, dude, I don't really know.
I can't have a combo of Wilmer Flores and Lamont Wade and Tom Murphy to compete up against the Snell, Sasaki, and Burnes. I can't, dude. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't get a bat. Just go get anyone.
Just give me a bat.
Oh my god,
brutal. I would only push back on the fact that we did get Adames, so it's not the typical Giants offseason.
But at what cost?
This is typical of the Giants in the offseason, is to get everyone's hopes up on a big free agent and then firmly pull out the rug from underneath you.
Anybody but an NOS team, dude. Come on.
Hey, can we trade with the Pittsburgh Pittsburgh Pirates on just what division we play in? Like, we don't actually want. We'll give you guys like $100 million to just trade divisions. The end.
This is rough, boys.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I said, the Adames signing should be a crazy huge positive, but when you're this in on Burnes and you just completely whiff on it this late in, and I don't understand. Like, did the Giants not know that the difference in him wanting to sign with the Giants and somebody else was state taxes? Like, what was the dollar amount that he needed to make up that difference for state taxes to where that was that big of a deal? It's just so odd to me.
I think the taxes thing is overblown. I think it's the opt out, if I'm being real. I don't think Buster wanted to do the opt out after 2 years, and I can't blame him.
I think the AAV was higher with Arizona, and I think he got the opt out, and the higher AAV paired with the fact that the taxes are lower, like it adds up. But I think, really, like you said, I think it's the opt out. I really do, especially when reports started circulating that Boras wanted the opt out in the deal. And I think the Giants very much were not going to give him that. So, and I don't blame him. Like you said, if that was the deal, like if that's the difference, then I can't even be mad at the Giants because I'm sick of the opt out crap.
Yeah.
So I can't even be mad at them if that was the difference. Then he was just really never going to end up coming here. So. Yeah. Whew. That's just. I think this is a little much. It's not worse than Saidi because they did get Adames, but it doesn't make it hurt less. Like, I will say, like it still sucks. Whew. But
yeah, I don't know. It's a really tough sell, man. Like, the Giants, I think they know how desperately they need to fill seats because that is a huge difference maker for them. And even with, Lee coming back and getting Adames, it's like, man, if you're still rolling out, Flores, Bailey, Wade, and then, a couple of younger guys, and they get off to a slow start, that is a really tough sell in your lineup. And then a very, question mark type rotation. I mean, I have zero belief in Jordan Hicks at all. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm good off 4 inning starts. We saw enough of that last year. It didn't work. I have no reason to believe it's going to get way better this year, and he's going to be able to handle more than 100 innings in a season. I'm still a big believer in Kyle Harrison. I believe in Hayden Birdsong. I believe in a lot of our young pitchers, but is it going to come this year? Are you going to really be able to rely on Kyle Harrison to be your number 2 or number 3? Is Robbie Ray for sure gonna turn, back into form? It's just so up in the air, man. You need so many things to go right. If you don't get another bat, at least if you get another middle of the order bat, everybody else slides down. You can have Chapman hitting, sixth for you, and you have a Fitz hitting seventh, and then all of a sudden your lineup, it's like, okay, I can kind of live with that.
Especially if Eldridge ends up being what we hope. Like you go from, you could have a pretty dangerous lineup if you got Santander in there, if Eldridge is as good as everyone hopes. So you could really, like, you could have a pretty potent lineup if you can get him. I'd still argue they need like a speed lead, like a leadoff guy that could really be dynamic. But you'd have like the makings of a really solid lineup. But yeah, I mean, the rotation, I mean, it feels like it could either be just total outhouse or castle next season. Like, in my opinion, like it really feels like you're going to be looking at a bunch of young guys that have pretty high ceilings, but we've seen the command issues in the floors that are not as good as we would hope. And if they're just, if they all blossom together, then maybe you're going, all right, let's go. We're ready to compete. But if they don't, like, you're going to be still a couple years off probably. So
if you guys want a quick laugh, Brooks Knudsen, shouts out Pitchers Park Pod. He just posted Corbin Burner appears headed to the Giants. A quick little
Corbin
laugh,
Burnes.
but dude, I legit feel like I got punched in the gut, bro.
Yeah,
what the hell,
that
man.
Sucks. Yeah, I'm sure we'll sleep on it. We'll come back with something. Maybe we will record something early in the week and kind of give.
When I say sleep on it, I might drink on it.
Damn.
Hey, honestly, I hope Corbin Burnes does the Madison Bumgarner and ends up having like a 6 ERA the next 2 years and just absolutely screws himself into getting stuck in Arizona. And now he's, hey, enjoy your offseason home, but now you're stuck in Arizona pitching in a hitter's ballpark.
Yeah.
Or does
with a team that isn't going to be spending that kind of money long term.
Or does the Jordan Montgomery?
I hope we hear the Diamondbacks owner just absolutely trashing Corbin Burnes next offseason. That's what I'm going to root for, just like he did to Montgomery. Damn. Oh well. On that note,
hey, I just want to say before we go, Giants baseball, nothing like it.
Giants baseball, no one likes it. Aren't they running back that again for the third year?
God, I hope not.
Like,
that is so pathetic.
They're already advertising it.
It's terrible.
Do you guys remember when they first rolled that out? Their whole promo was literally just advertising like McCovey Cove and the Seagulls. And I'm like, so other than Webb and Doval, who are we exactly supposed to get excited for here, with your marketing campaign? Like, that's an absolute joke sell by the franchise.
We have like 4 players to like 5 players that like you can genuinely get excited about, I feel like, currently. And then there's a lot of guys that have like upside that it's like, hey, these guys could, potentially be really solid. But like, to me, like Webb, Lee, Chapman, Adames, and Ramos.
Yep.
Like, that's what you got. And then you have a bunch of guys that are kind of like teetering on that, where maybe you can like Fitz can be an exciting player, but the whiff rates and strikeout rates and everything, I have a lot of concerns. But there's a lot of guys that are close. That's rough, man. That is just a rough way to end this show. So, all right. Well, on that note, hope everyone has a great weekend.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thanks a lot. You had to keep it going.
Yeah.
My fault. Blame the caveman.
Damn. We would have just been sending the WTF messages in the chat. Dealt with this another day.
I think we need a Will Clark video tomorrow with Eric Burns saying how this is all Farhan's fault for setting the team up for failure before leaving. He's the reason we didn't get Burns.
That'd make us feel better at least. Damn.
Yeah, I would.
Oh God. All right, everybody. You guys have a great night. Maybe we'll dive in. We'll do some digging on some different ideas. Obviously, we kind of put a bunch out there today. Maybe we'll try and we'll get some more news and rumors from the Giants and have a better feel on where they're going. But this is a crappy day. So have a great night. Have a good weekend. If you guys are playing fantasy football or anything, good luck in your playoffs. Other than that, go Giants, I guess. And we'll catch you next time.
There's always Tom Murphy.
Oh my God.
Okay.